So, do you want to know how to organize your game? Then welcome, I'm Paul and I'm helping you become a better developer. So to organize your projects, you have to take in account that there are a lot of aspects that actually make a game. There is scripting, building, user interface and user experience, and also audio, VFX and animations. These are the main core components, and we're gonna go over them in the video. And we're gonna make an example of maybe like an FPS game. And make sure to fully watch the video because I'm gonna show example with my own games, and also give you a huge advice at the end, which will help you get your project structured to a better level. But anyway, first thing you need to do is to separate your project into different periods. And don't do a bit of scripting, then a bit of building and a bit of UI, then, you know, repeat the process with a random order, because it's usually just going to slow you down and make everything more chaotic. And also don't start off by building the best environment for your game, because after that you might lose motivation or don't even have the energy to continue scripting on the project. If you ever saw a beginning of the dev system, you'd have known that they use prototype meshes like with checkerboards like this baseplate right here, and same with like map assets. But anyway, so first thing you need to do is organize your scripts. Before you start writing anything, just plan them, make something like a bare bones system so you have an idea of how things are going to work. So scripts create the game logic, the game loop, and also many systems and behaviors. But to the FPS example, like there are a lot of components. There is the round system, which also requires you to have a player manager, map loading, maybe like map voting and handling score and so on, right? So to plan everything out, I recommend just putting everything into folders. This one will be named round, and this will be the round script. And what the script needs to do is basically just start the round, then wait for the round to finish, then do like few functions for like round summary and stuff, and then start another round. And you don't have to do everything like I do so in the video. You can just like test it out or even write something on a piece of paper if you want. But I'm also going to show you another tool, which is the appdiagrams.net. And this is something that I use to basically just write the game logic for certain projects. I don't know why this one was so bright, but basically it might be complicated a bit. All of it is just block schemes, but in reality it's just pretty simple. But basically this is just a logic that I've made for the player trying to use a tool in game. Like this is all the local remote communication, but this is how I was just planning things. Later on stuff just gets a bit complicated, so I'm not gonna talk about this one. But this is just an example, right? So yeah, going back, this right here is the game loop, and this is just one of the components that's making the game. But if you go a bit deeper into it, the start of the round would have to get the players, then load the map, and then teleport the players. And then after everything is done, it has to start a timer. So as you can see, the start of the round, it requires us to do 4 different things, right? So this is the player manager, this is the map loader, this is gonna be in the player manager again, and this is gonna be a timer. So as you can see, the best approach to it would be something like modular programming, right? So you can make another folder, name this one modules, and add a module script. This one would have to be the player manager, and this one would have to be the map loader. And this round start script would have to require them, like so. And this map loader, map loader would have a method which would load the map, player manager would get the players, and then player manager would teleport the player. This one should be right there. Right, so that's this. Then we need to start a timer. So we would need another module, this one would be the timer, then we would require the timer, and so on, right? And we could give the round maybe like 2 minutes, so you could start the timer for like 120 seconds. And then we could do a round summary, and then just start another round, and all of this could be done in a round system, which could be a while true loop, for example. If you are finding this tutorial helpful, I kindly ask that you leave a like on this video, because it would really support me and my channel. We have recently passed 1000 subscribers, and I'm really thankful for this, guys. I really appreciate you being here, and yeah, I hope this and my future videos will help you out. Or it could be something more complex, like my own round system. This is a game that I'm working on, and I've been posting devlogs of it on my channel, but recently I didn't really have time to work on it because I was working on something else that's gonna be probably out next week. But anyways, so this is the round script, which has a start new round function, and it gets the round module, right? The round module has the timer object, which is right here, and it just starts the timer, and it has this callback function, which is this function right here that's passed as an argument to be fired at the end of the round. And whenever this round starts, you can see that it's a recursive function that just starts another round. But since this is a disaster game, on the round start we get the disaster data, then we get the players from the player manager, we tell the players that the round has started, then we do the disaster function, and then we start the timer from the timer object. Then we just clean everything up and fire the callback function. And if I playtest it right now, it's not going to work because I think I disabled some scripts. Oh yeah, this method right here. Yeah, this is where we start the round from the round module. I have it commented. So yeah, as you can see, the round is is ongoing and there is a disaster happening, and after this disaster finishes, it's gonna start a new disaster. Yep, there is the cleanup, and it gave me a sword. So that's basically the game loop. But going back to organizing the scripts, this is just one of the components that you have to make, but you can also do other stuff like, you know, map voting. If you are making an FPS game, you would also need a hit validator, which is a task that has to be performed on the server, so that would be another script, and this script might also require the player manager, and this is what I said about the modular programming. If you have a function that gets the players in the player manager, you can also require the player manager to get the player that's, you know, being hit in the hit validator. And if you are making something more complex, you would, for example, need a respawn logic, and this would be the script that would get the operations on the player service. It would handle the player died and player wanting to respawn functions, and every time a player would spawn, they would also have to get the gun. So you would have player added, player died, spawn player, give gun, right? And since there are these operations, right, in this script you could maybe see why the player died. If it was by, you know, another player, you could also assign score. So right now we have few components, right? Now you would have to think how you want to design the system so everything works well. And there are many tools that allow you to do that. It's not only about modular programming. There are also task libraries, which could let you run functions in different threads, or events, right here, bindable event and bindable function, which let you communicate between the scripts. Let's say you wanted to communicate the round script with the respawn logic to maybe tell the round to stop after every player dies, if it was an elimination match. So in this case, you would just use a bindable event. So these are the basic server components, but there are also the player components, because, well, the player needs to aim, shoot, run, do whatever. So you also need to think about what the player needs to do. So there may also be a shop and an inventory system in which the player selects the gun. So on the server, it will also require us to do another folder, which would be inventory based. And here you could add a shop script and an inventory handler. In the inventory handler, you basically want to equip player with gun, which isn't the same as spawning the player with gun. You want to change the player data, let's say that equipped gun, to like a selected gun. And in the shop, you would want to do something like give the gun to inventory. And these two scripts would work on remote events. But it would also require you to have some kind of a player data, so that could be another module named player profile. And the shop and the inventory, they would both require it. And in here you would have a table, which is gonna hold all the player inventories, their coins and everything from a data store. And you would have different functions which can do operations on the player inventory and then load and save it to the data store. But yeah, and we would have to also display the inventory and the shop and everything to the player. And what's best for displaying information? Well, GUI. So the starter GUI, you would need a screen GUI, and this one is going to be a menu. And it would have different frames like buttons, the inventory, and the shop, and many other things that you would want to add. The buttons would need a spawn button, open inventory, and then also open shop. And managing everything could be done in a local script inside of the GUI right there. And this would do all the operations like sending signals to the server. And to communicate with the server, we have to go to the replicated storage and add remote events or functions because they allow for the client-server communication back and forth. So it would be something like load inventory, then change equip, load shop, and buy item, and also a spawn me signal. So yeah, as you can see, we are getting more and more components into the game. And if someone doesn't know, yeah, that's why game dev usually takes a lot of time with managing the system, making the assets, and so on. But going back to the player scripts, there is the starter player container, and it also holds the starter character scripts and starter player scripts. So the starter player scripts, everything in this folder runs whenever the player joins the game. So if I play the game, you can see my player instance gets added to the player service, and that's when every script from there is going to run. And starter character scripts are scripts that if I press play and go to workspace, they run whenever my character loads into the workspace. So as you can see, there is the animate script, which is Roblox's script which handles the animation on the character, and it's a starter character script. Starter character scripts run after being parented to the player's character. So as I said, the player needs to shoot the gun and also aim. So you'd have to get something like a gun manager, right? Now, the player would only be able to use the gun if their character is loaded in the game on the map and they are not in menu. Because when they are in menu, they don't need the character to be there. So we can add a local script into the starter character scripts, and this one will be the gun manager. And receiving the gun would also need to be done through a remote event. We could name this one get gun, and after the player would spawn, they would require the gun, which means they would fire the server. And it's fully dependent on your game logic and how you want to set it up. But right here, the player would need a function to aim the gun and shoot the gun, and both of these require the gun. So we can say that after the character gets added, we can fire a signal to get the gun, then receive a server signal, then we would run a build gun function, and this build gun function would later allow us to aim the gun and shoot the gun. And there is also the movement-based script, and the player can only move if they have a character. So that also goes into the starter character scripts. And this would get the user input service, maybe content action service, and it would make functions, which would be run, slide, jump over obstacles, and so on, you get it. So just planning all of that will tell you that we need, well, 19 different components. And I'm gonna show another example from my weapon fighting project called the Dual Blades. So basically, I mean, ignore the scripts at the top for now. Like I said, it's just a weapons fighting game, right? So firstly the player loads, then there is the menu, there is the inventory, which has all the weapons, then there is the store, which only has this one as a game pass, but the player can change equipped, and yeah, if I do play, we spawn in and we have the weapon, right? And we can attack. And there is also this training dummy that can take the hit. But yeah, this game basically just works on a combo, so I can do like a free combo hit or just do like a singular attack. And this was just made for a little project, not really a serious game right now, but I think I'm gonna revamp it in the future. So you can also see that there is the leaderboard, which you can hide, and the menu. And for the scripts, the signal is just a framework from good signal made by, well, this guy. Listener is just like a script that listens to a signal to kill the player. Mods its modules, which has the add-ons that are for the session data. There is timing server, current kills, reset kills, which I don't really remember what it was for, but there are also some validation like attack cooldown and hitbox status and all of the other stuff. Then there is the item IDs, the player check that's for an anti-cheat, and there is the timer. I don't remember what I use the timer for in this, but yeah. Product is the product manager for the marketplace service. Then there is profile, which is the player data. It's from the profile service, which is a part of the Madwork framework. And then there is server managers. So there is the global leaderboards for this. This one has the longest playtime, most kills, and largest streak. And then there is this singular manager. This gets the item data, and I have it made where you can pick up weapons from different places. So this one has a prompt key, which is a proximity prompt, and this function basically gets the prompt keys, and later it gives the proper item assignments. You also set the dummies. This is the badges. This one gives the player the badge for picking up a different weapon, right? And then there is the spawn character. So as you can see, instead of having everything in different scripts, I have only some parts on different scripts, and other stuff is just written in functions. For a game like this, well, you don't need any advanced systems, and I figured it would be easier to just have everything in a manager like this one. So this is the spawn player, right? Which loads the player character from the spawn request signal, which is a remote event from right here. Then you have the enable hitbox and set weapon for the player, which will just send the load equip to the, I believe, weapon manager. Yeah, we get the weapon right here. We have the combo break, the cooldown, the new animations, and create connections, which after this signal, the create connections disconnects the old connections and creates new hitbox connections and fires the hit register signal to the server. So from what you saw, the player was able to basically, you know, spawn in, walk around, and basically just use the weapon, which technically wasn't too much, right? But as you saw from all of the scripts and all of the components, to do that well, you kind of need, you know, to do a lot on the backend. Not to mention that everything also has its own animations and different sound effects. And there also is the GUI manager, which gets the input on mobile, which basically just manages everything like spawning in, loading the shop, and basically everything. So there is the spawn request, then this change equip, and load inventory. Oh yeah, and the shop isn't there because it's only a badge right there, but yeah. Oh, and I didn't mention it previously, but depending on your game, my hitboxes are registered locally but validated on the server. And if I go right here, if they are registered locally, you would also need a remote event, which is gonna be a hit register for the hit validator to basically just confirm the hit and damage the player. And yeah, so if I do a quick playtest, like I said, there is only like fighting, changing stuff, getting kills, getting other players, and everything you saw, right? And you can just see how many scripts, functions, and everything it took. It was just basically just hundreds and hundreds of lines of code. And yeah, shout out to the people who are actually checking out my game. I only did some videos on TikTok on it, but yeah. So that's how you should basically build your projects and manage them. I mean, of course, you don't have to do it exactly like I did, just do it so it would suit your workflow. Like, this is a way of separating the components that works the best for me, and you should do it in a way which works the best for you, so you can always just, you know, experiment with everything. So I'm not gonna close it yet because I'm gonna need to show you other examples later. Now let me quickly talk about components that are usable by both client and the server. So you have this replicated storage, right? And it's a container that both the server and the client can access, and let's say you wanted to use this timer on both of them to, let's say, give the player a 5-second cooldown before they can spawn. So what you could do is add another folder, name this one mods or modules, modules and just move the timer right here. And from this place it can be required by the normal scripts and also local scripts or other module scripts. And with that you don't have to make another timer that's, you know, used by the local player, because you already have this existing one. And let's say you wanted to also do a change to the timer, you would have to change two scripts separately instead of just having this one, which is just gonna be more work for you. But that's everything there is for the client server and script logic. Like, this is how I organize my game and have everything set to work in my way and have it set how I want it to be. But yeah, let's not talk about the maps and building and assets. So like I said already, you usually want to have prototypes before making an actual map or actual environment. You know, just add some walls here and there to be maybe used as a cover, have some boxes and so on, right? You don't want to make a full-on map, but just prepare some assets, right? Then what I highly recommend doing, instead of making the map just because, you know, thinking that, oh, I want this area and this area in my map and I'm gonna start making them, start off from the base. Just simply make a big lane that's gonna be the base of the map and start separating it into like areas. Say you want the red zone to be a spawn for team A and you want the blue zone to be spawn for team B, right? Then design it in a way you want it to be, like maybe add some buildings here, there, and so on. Then have maybe like more open areas that are gonna be indicated by another color, and basically just design everything around it like so. Don't start off by maybe making like, you know, an underground tunnel, like a metro, by fully designing the spawn location first with assets and everything, and then moving on to a different part without having any, you know, final image that you want the map to be. Just plan it out from blocks, then think like, maybe I want this open area to be, I don't know, a road, maybe I want this open area to be a park, maybe players can go inside of this house, that one, maybe there is gonna be like another pathway here, right? Just make this big prototype. Then when you have the scripts ready, when you have the logic ready, the game loop, everything, then start actually making the map. But I recommend, instead of making the assets and everything, maybe do like a vector graphic of how you want it to be, or maybe make like an area with lower assets instead of, you know, having a game ready box. Instead of that, just use a cube, just slap whatever material and add a bit by bit and slowly move to another area before, you know, making a final product. And when it comes to having everything in the workspace, I usually just make folders for everything too. Like, let's say I had this house right here, right? I would select the houses, name them house, and then just put them in the folder and name this folder houses. And depending on the scale of the map, I would also have a map folder and usually just put everything inside of this folder. I could also select these parts, add another folder, which could be open areas, and I would basically just move them there. Same with these spawn locations, and you basically just get the idea, right? But there is one minus thing with it. If this was a model, right, you could just click on it and then just drag it around if you wanted to, right? But since everything is in the folders, you can't really do so. You have to select the map folder and then just move it like this. Because as you can see, I can only move this part on its own. But you can always just group it and ungroup it later and put it in the folder again. And also, if there are parts in the group, let's say this one, and you wanted to select only one instead of like 3 of these, you can just hold Alt and you just only select this part that's in the group. And that's how I have it in the Dual Blades game. This is the camera part used for the, well, you know, the main screen. The spawn are outside of the map folder to be easier to access. The prompt group, which basically just gives you the swords or the weapons to also be easier to access, is in its separate folder. Then there is the map right here. Whoops. Then there is the map right here, which basically just has all the models, the water, and yeah. There wasn't really like a strict thing where I wanted to put trees inside of, you know, their own folders inside of the map, because I'm planning on just changing the map. This was just made so it would be there for like testing and stuff, because as you can see, there is like this area right here which is used for, you know, fighting on the platforms, and it's just really chaotic, like none of it's basically just sorted, so yeah. But if I go to the disaster game project, there is these few assets that I was building and didn't put them in the folder yet, because they are used from also these assets that should be in the building parts. But yeah, there is the disaster holder, which is used for disaster parts. Like if there is gonna be meteors falling down, instead of them being in the workspace, they are gonna be in the folder. The lava that you saw previously is also in this folder, and there is the map, right? There are the assets, which are basically just all of the assets that are right here, like these machines, this map, even these plants. You can see there is the foliage here and chairs. The tracks are also in the separate group, but yeah, I don't know why the roof folder is empty, but anyway. Then there is the spawn location, the elevators, the first floor, which is the platform. This is the second one and the third one, so it would be basically easier to just manage all the assets there. But remember when I said to make everything from the base? Well, I've made this box as a base to go with something like the classic disaster survival has, and yeah, this whole box is also in its own separate folder. Oh, and if you're wondering how I managed to like snap to objects like this, I press F. And that would be it for the workspace structure, for the 3D environment and the level design. And user experience is how a user reacts and experiences a given interface or a product, and how well they are able to understand the functionality and other aspects. In this case is the GUI. Think of it as something as having a button menu that a person sees. The top button is usually the biggest, most shiny, basically standing out button with the label play. If you were to put this button in the middle of other buttons, which would vary in size, the user wouldn't feel too comfortable using it. And UX is a hard topic, and explaining all of it would require a whole different video course. But for a Roblox game, you would need to make an interface usable and easy to understand for the aimed demographic, which usually is just 8-year-olds. But anyway, but now for actually structuring the GUI, there are programs like Figma or Framer, which are made for making interface designs, usually for the web, but you can use them for simple stuff like Roblox's GUI too. You can also make designs like buttons in Photoshop or GIMP if you wanted to, but for the best option I would recommend just using Roblox Studio GUI tools. There are more than enough for basic stuff, but they also lack a lot, and that's why I mentioned Photoshop, since it allows you to make graphics and designs that Studio isn't able to make. And well, for the process, at first just separate it into blocks, then name the blocks. For instance, this one could be the menu buttons, this one would be the display block for displaying the shop or the inventory, and so on, right? And remember to always leave some space somewhere in case you wanted to put a special offer or an event tab somewhere. Then start editing the blocks, add borders, background, etc., add basic graphics, and later add more and more detail. If it comes to GUI, I recommend just making everything rough, not carrying out the design first, and just making it later. Now, I put VFX Audio Animations into the same category. I prefer to leave them last after scripting and building, basically to be ready after a certain system, asset, or whatever is ready. And where to put them in all of this? Well, anywhere. Put everything in the place where a component which uses them has the best access to. For example, if the player needs to hold a tool and it does a sound and has an idle and using animation, then you could just put them into the handle or make a special folder for other stuff. But talking about the audio and the animations, there is the sound service right here, which I basically have all of the sounds, but I also have them in the server storage and the weapons. As you can see, I used another folder because now I just realized how many folders I use for these projects. But anyway, I guess they just help me keep stuff organized. The animations, there is the idle animation and the attack animations in the separate folder, and the different sounds are also right here. But yeah, for the example of the battle axe, if you had a gun for the FPS game, you could have the different animations and different gun sounds and like metadata inside of a different module, which could just change the IDs of everything whenever you wanted to load. But I'm pretty sure I have everything on a static level. Yeah, these two animations are different, so it doesn't load anything. But yeah, just make different containers for everything and just organize it as you want. And for the advice that I was talking about, well, it all comes to a mindset. With what I'm going to tell you, you are hopefully going to organize your projects better, but you basically need to think of the engine, the, Roblox Studio as a sandbox where you don't have to have every script and every component in a strictly selected place, well, except the containers that the different scripts can run in. Like you can't access scripts in the server script service or access the server storage from a client's perspective. But yeah, what you do and how you do it is fully dependent on you. You are the developer and you need to arrange everything so it's a suitable environment for you to work in. And also it will come naturally with experience. So I recommend starting by creating some smaller projects, for example a calculator that the player can use where the server would perform the operation and return the value to a player, right? So you need a local script, a GUI object, a remote event, and a server script. So this is just 4 components instead of making like all of these from right here, right? Because this is just much more work. And then after that you will slowly start moving into bigger and bigger projects, and eventually you will get a pretty good hold of it. But yeah, if you want to be a better developer, I highly suggest that you check out my video about things I wish sooner as a Roblox scripter, because I talk about different practices that might impact your workflow. But yeah, that's everything for today, and see ya guys.